Hello. I am adding a guest. Let me see. Okay. Hey guys, just 1 second while I sent the invitation to the guest for today. It's going to be a super fun topic. So, if for those of you who are just learning about our show, technical issues is a part of the show at this point. So, waiting for the guest to come on. Okay, so I've already done everything on my part. So while we're waiting for the guest to hop on, my show is called Hopefully Spreading Wisdom. And we don't promise wisdom, but we're hopeful. And today, my guest, her name is Yafi Lavova. Beautiful name. She's a blogger. She's a dietitian. She helps people with behavioral issues, all sorts of things, and to correct those things through dieting or through diet, not dieting per se. But one of the amazing things is how she and I met was in a group for Jewish mothers, and different struggles in mothering and parenting when you are the all of our when we are the all of our children. It can be incredibly overwhelming, and how we deal with those feelings, and how we love, how we nurture, how we discipline, and how we can, I guess, deal with the day-to-day and deal with those emotions when we love our children so much. Obviously there's no one in the world we love more than our kids, but let's be realistic, especially my kids. Sometimes kids can be a challenge. Sometimes they can be very, very difficult. So we are talking today about how to go through these feelings, and with a small Tehillim, 146 in the article. All right. So before we open the show, pick up a quote or a Tehillim or something that helps people like spiritual food a little bit. So to open this, 146, and then we can jump in. And I felt like it was very the topic of conversation. Everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
I know a lot of people.
I don't know if it's mine.
Do you have an earpiece?
Yeah, I'll get my earpiece.
That could be helpful.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Facebook doesn't let us use our computers. We have, most of the time, much better cameras, much better speakers. Oh my gosh, perfect. Okay, awesome. All right, so to open the show, I felt like this was very fitting of how we deal with everything, and how really being a mother, I don't know if you agree or not, I feel like it's a miraculous event. I feel like it's not something that we can do alone. And if there was ever a time to become spiritually engaged when you have children to raise, that would be that time, because I don't know how people who do not have a relationship with our Creator, I don't know how the hell they make it. I don't know how they do it. No idea. So the Tehillim is hallelujah. Praise Hashem, O my soul. I will exalt Hashem while I live. I will make music to my God while I exist. Do not rely on nobles, nor on a human being, for he holds no salvation. When his spirit departs, he returns to his earth, and on that day his plans all perish. Praiseworthy is the one whose help is Jacob's God, whose hope is in Hashem, his God. He is the maker of heavens. He is the maker of heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, who safeguards truth forever. He does justice for his exploited. He gives bread to the hungry. Hashem releases the bound. Hashem gives sight to the blind. Hashem straightens the bent. Hashem loves the righteous. Hashem protects strangers, orphans, and widow. He encourages. But the way of the wicked he contorts. Hashem shall reign forever, your God, O Zion, from generation to generation. Hallelujah. All right. So tell us about you and how we met. Because I feel like if this was not Hashgacha Pratis, what on earth is?
Yeah, well, I'm Yafi Lavova. I'm a registered dietitian. My business is Baby Bloom Nutrition, and I try to help parents in that transition from not being parents to being parents. And I try to help alleviate some of that mom guilt, and a lot of that is wrapped up in nutrition. So I help with selective eating and a lot of things like that. But just we often have moments of weakness of our own. And even though I'm trying to help parents through the very things that I'm going through, it doesn't mean that I am perfect by any means. And
Right?
my earrings are making too much noise. So
Sorry.
it can be, no worries. It's really difficult to be parents. It's really difficult to be a mom. And I do what I can on the nutrition front to help other people, but in a lot of other ways, I need my own resources to get through it. It's not easy, and nobody's doing it perfectly. And the funny thing is that when I, as a nutrition professional, talk to, for instance, a parenting coach or behavioral specialist, they will echo the same things that I say about nutrition back in a different context, but the very same concepts. And it's just fascinating how you can be like so good in one area and feel like such an awful parent in
sure.
other areas.
Like we can be,
and we need that tribe.
One area, and then chronologically way down there in another.
Yes.
And
yeah,
I think it's remarkably hard also when there's so much responsibility of, like, a lot of us who are self-employed every day. We don't have a boss telling us, most of us don't have a physical boss telling us do this and this and this, and then you've done your job. We have to do this. We have to network. We have to phone call. We have to assess who is a client, who isn't a client. It's such a tremendous responsibility to be self-employed. And then you have to go after, you have to make miracles happen for your parnasa. You then have to go and deal with your kids, who are the reason you work your butt off to make the miracles to begin with. And that, I feel like, is it's tremendously,
it's overwhelming.
It's
overwhelming. And the thing is that even just having your own business these days means you have to be a social media guru. You have to be a graphic designer. You have to you have to be, for my business, I have to be a chef. I have to do recipe development. I have to be a photographer to photograph it. I have to design the recipe cards, and then I have to market myself right. And there are legal issues that come up. So you have to wear so many hats as a small business owner. And then the same is true of being a mother. You're a chef, you're a maid, you're a constant babysitter, you are the entertainment. And so it is just, it's like, it's impossible to not multitask. You have to be doing 20 things at once. And that is so stressful, and it's not conducive to running a business effectively. And it's not conducive to running a family effectively either.
Right. When I moved to Michigan, and we had to really, the kids and I kind of had to, as a family, reprioritize our lives to go from all of the things, all of the reasons why we lived in New York. And then I reevaluated all of those reasons, and I thought, to be self-employed, to be a comedian, to be in radio, And all of these spectacular things was coming at a cost to my children, my health. I mean, 2 years ago, almost to the day, I almost died of anorexia. I had to make the damn decision that my purpose in this world had to be of more value than what I looked like. And that was really hard for me. It never occurred to me to change what I eat and to get into a rhythm of food that's going to nourish my body, fill me up, and also help me with ADHD and all of these other things, to go through and learn all of that. I just said, F it, I'm just not going to eat. And that was how like I handled all of this. And I feel like it took a miracle to kick me awake. And it is because I feel like I am so grateful for that miracle that I went on what I actually call like a continuation of a spiritual journey that I started in my teens. You know what I mean? And then there was just, life happens and you have to make decisions where it wasn't practical to keep Shabbat. It wasn't practical to do a bunch of things. Well, it's practical if you want to be alive. It's practical if you want to have not only righteous children, but reasonable and happy children. And how I had to bring to life a relationship with God. And I feel like I was almost able to do that. And I've been able to, for example, this is just one of the self-help books that I'm reading now by Aria Kaplan, Meditation in the Bible. If anyone is not a fan of Aria Kaplan, become a fan of Aria Kaplan today.
I'm a fan.
Isn't he amazing? Oh my God, he's amazing.
Yeah.
But
I think it's
go ahead.
I think for me, I'm a little bit more modern than some in my own community, and I think Aria Kaplan's works really bridge a gap, and he makes things make sense. So a lot of times our connection with religion is it can be tenuous. Sometimes you're on a roller coaster; it goes up and down, and sometimes just reading works by Aria Kaplan can really kind of bring it back to reality for you. It's very grounding. It's not way up in the sky. Like you have to really work to connect with that idea. It kind of hits you where you live.
Right.
And I appreciate that.
And I think it's also important for people, especially people who don't believe in God, I feel like have this idea that God is like this judgmental, awful beast in the sky who just throws shit at us. And God is absolutely everywhere. Like God actually is present in our lives at all times. And it's very hard to see that. And I felt like I got to the place where I hit a brick wall where I demanded him. I was like, no, you're going to help me because you're the only being who can. And I started reading more of Aria Kaplan's works, but I also started listening to Rev Dror and watching his shirim. And I realized that I actually had a conversation with his assistant where we talked about how God spoke the world into being. It didn't say God thought the world into being. He wrote the world into being. He spoke the world into creation. And when you get into how important our words are, and that our words really do manifest our reality for the positive or, God forbid, for the negative, it makes it a little bit easier to see how change works. When I started realizing, well, it's really hard to fix problems with people once they're there. It would be really hard to try to connect with my children when they're 20. So maybe I should just make the effort to connect with them now. And then we think about, well, what are the things that people go through that give them these problems as adults? Well, it's usually children were never told they were special. They were never told they were loved. They were never told they were important. And when I started doing the I ams, I first did it where every morning on the way to school, I would say to my children, you're wonderful, you're special, you're important, you're necessary. And then I thought, well, why am I saving this wisdom just for them? Why don't we turn it into a family conversation where every morning when we get in the car, we say good morning to God, we say good morning to each other, we thank God for everything we have, and the kids get into it and thank God for Superman, or thank God for my friend Josh at school, where the kids start to talk about the things that they thank God for. And then we do our I ams, where I realized that for my own self, you say, I am smart, I am blessed, I am a blessing, I am loved, I am loving. And then we took it a step further. I can do math, I can do science, I can do physics, I can read Hebrew, I can write Hebrew. And I noticed my Hebrew skills are terrible. My kids can wipe the floors with me. But when I started saying I can read Hebrew, I noticed that my discipline to learning the Hebrew language and the reading started to evolve, where I would be able to start thinking, well, what is that letter? Oh, that's a yud, or oh, that's a mim. I started seeing in my own life where I am being clearly divinely led. And I feel like it's an evolution, it's not a revelation. And I felt like it's helped alleviate a lot of the anxieties about how do I discipline my children so that they still love me, that I'm not being vicious, and give them what they need. And that was kind of what started all of this for us. And how we met is actually interesting, and I've spoken way too much. So why don't you go in and explain to them, how did we even find each other in the first place?
So there's a fabulous Facebook group called Confessions of Mommy, and I love that group because I've been able to say some pretty off the wall things. And although most of the group, it seems most of the group is made of religious Jews, a lot of them have mixed backgrounds, and they were able to understand from a different perspective what I'm talking about. And so this time I knew this was a safe space, and I went on that group and I said, I hate momming. I love my kids. I hate momming. And I got all kinds of answers to that, all kinds of responses, and a lot of them were really supportive. Some of them provided a lot of them provided advice. Some of it was more applicable to my existence than others. But I really liked what you had said about the I ams. And I wrote a whole article, which is actually going to appear in Nashim magazine, where I'm quoting you.
Yeah. Yes.
That's going to be in Nashim magazine, because Nashim is an amazing publication that publishes these controversial topics where a lot of the other magazines just really won't touch it. They want to paint this rosy picture. And the thing is that there is a spectrum of appreciation of motherhood. There are probably those women who are out there that are the unicorn moms who actually love every moment of motherhood and either don't mind having piles of laundry and dishes or actually somehow get it handled. And then on the other end of the spectrum are the news stories, the women with postpartum psychosis. And that exists as well. And we all need to be very compassionate about that, because that's unbelievably difficult. But most of us live in a gray area in the middle.
Right.
And
now,
we need help with that. We need to know that everyone's there, that it's not just us, that we're not the only ones having a difficult moment with the kids.
So what is the difference between regular miscellaneous postpartum depression, which is not so, I mean, those, I think I definitely had regular postpartum depression, but what is postpartum depression psychosis? Is there a difference?
Yes, there's a huge difference, and the news does an absolutely terrible job of telling us what that difference is, and it's to the detriment of a lot of women who could benefit from help and don't know that they could benefit from help. So there's the baby blues, which is about a 2-week period after you have a baby where your hormones are regulating and you feel a little bit sad. And that's really, really normal. A lot of people face that. It's good to talk about it, but it doesn't necessarily need some major intervention. Then you have postpartum depression and also postpartum anxiety, which is more what I had, that I felt depressed. I said a lot of things that should have been triggers for those around me. But I felt this boulder on my chest all the time. I could not leave my kids alone. I couldn't leave them with anyone, because if I can't handle them, and I have twin boys as well, I know you know how that is. If I can't handle them, then no one else can either.
Right.
And it didn't occur to me that I am waking up 9+ times every night with these kids, and the person who's offering to watch them did not wake up 9+ times and is maybe in a better mental state to care for my children than I am. That
Right.
didn't occur to me.
I had that
I
same
was
problem.
obsessed.
I kept them home for
it's a
20 months.
normal problem.
Hindsight being 2020, big mistake.
Yeah. Sure, big mistake. I was isolating. I had a traumatic birth and I wanted to isolate. And I will maintain that a certain level of isolation is healthy. There are certain cultures that advocate for a month generally for the woman to sit at home and recuperate with her babies. Some women want to go out right away, and that's fine too. If that's what's healthy in that dynamic, that's perfectly fine. But if a woman wants to isolate, wants to be home, and bond with her kids and get close to her children, then you have to ask yourself, is this healthy isolation or not healthy isolation? And if you feel that it's not healthy, say something like, have you spoken to your doctor about this? You don't have to get more in depth than that. You don't have to put your relationship at risk. But speaking of that, isn't it better to lose a relationship expressing a concern for postpartum depression rather than have that person live like that?
Yes.
There are people who told me that they didn't say anything to me because they thought I'd get mad at them. And I'm mad at them now because they should have put our relationship on the line in order to let me know that I needed help. So then we have postpartum psychosis. And postpartum psychosis is the awful stories on the news that are usually labeled as postpartum depression. If you have postpartum depression, you may have thoughts of harming yourself or your children, but you wouldn't act on it. Postpartum psychosis is when you cross that line where you are off balance enough that you would actually act on harming yourself, your spouse, your children, anyone around you. And that is a situation that does need professional intervention. And a lot of times there are great programs for that. And if that's something, if you feel that you are crossing that line, talk to your doctor about it. This is not your fault. If you have postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, or even postpartum psychosis, this is not you. This is your hormones and your situation speaking. And there is no shame in getting help. You deserve the help. Your kids deserve the help. So we see these stories on the news and we blame the women. You know, the awful situation where a woman drowned her 4 kids. She was not in her right mind.
No.
I'm not going to sit here on Facebook and Photoshop pictures of her in hell. I mean, God forbid. She is someone who needed help and didn't get it.
Right.
And I feel so much compassion for this woman and her family, but it's very important that we understand that these different diseases exist and there are ways to manage them. A lot of times it requires therapy. Any new mom could benefit from a session with a therapist, but there's also nutritional intervention and there is medical intervention, and there's no shame in that either. We need to make sure that we're healthy, that we are as happy as we can be. This is a tough job. And if your hormones are taking over your life, talk to your doctor about it because it can be better. You deserve better.
I feel like, one of the methods that I have seen people do, and I think it's horrendous, and people have done it to me. I've had friends of mine who've had this happen to them, where when things are not the vision of perfection, when it became clear to me that I was not going to be able to be deathly skinny, a real estate developer, a talk show host, a comedian, a mother, a human being, all of these things simultaneously, when I was not able to be perfect. And I was not able to, I'm saying that seriously. When I was not perfection, some people, and again, it's been done to me, involve Child Protective Services because they don't want to sit down and have a conversation. Like you said, they don't want to put the relationship on the line for the betterment of of the woman, the children, the whole family unit. So it's like, rather than talk to you, are you okay? What's going on? You know, this and this and this looks odd to me. I'm just going to assume all of these things and let a government official deal with you. I feel like that's been, unfortunately, a course of action, which I don't know very many people who've been helped by involving agencies such as those. I know it exists, and I know that they're there to protect children, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for it. I just think that this has turned into an abused system, and I feel like we only see the stories on the news when they are so bad. I can't think of the woman that you're talking about, the 4 kids, but I know who I know who she is. I feel like when it gets to that point, that's when people have all of these opinions, but it makes you wonder, well, how could have this been prevented? What could have we done? What could we have done differently to maybe allow this woman to feel her feelings where it maybe didn't have to get to that point? Like maybe there could have been a jump in where didn't have to happen.
Right. So rather than saying she's an awful mother, you have to say, wow, what could we have done to prevent this? And what could be done is more screening at the hospitals. They do have screening that they can do to test for postpartum depression or maybe something further. These need to be checked at doctor's visits afterwards. We see doctors for so often, you know, you're going for your OB check after you give birth, and then you're going to your pediatrician every month. And this needs to be on the radar at the doctor's office so that we check. And also we need to consider that someone who's in this mental state may not be having regular doctor checks. So it's complicated, and we need to have a better system for preventative care. And that's something that healthcare practitioners across the spectrum in the United States will say we need to be more on top of preventative care, but this falls under that umbrella.
And do you think that maybe some women don't talk about how they're really feeling because of the fear of Child Protective Services and because of the fear of what is everyone going to think? Like, I remember when I read your post, I was like, oh my God, she's so brave. She's so brave. Like, I mean, that's bravery. That's really, that's real bravery, because there are so, when we communicate those feelings, we are now at the mercy of assumptions of people that may or may not really have our best interest at hand. You know, how do you know? Well, like this group happens to be Confessions of a Mommy. We're all in that group because we have kids. What if you had a similar post in a regular Jewish group or Jewish women, whatever it is? How do you know the woman right below you, you know, is struggling to have children? And then it's like,
right.
You know, every
well,
woman
even in Confessions of Mommy, there are people who have kids who want more kids and are struggling. And I can say I did go through that infertility battle for 4 years. I do understand it. I do remember what my triggers were, and they got pretty intense. Anything would set me off. But you can't hold the general society responsible for all of your triggers. I mean, people are going to post pictures of their kids. They are going to complain about motherhood. But yeah, it's really difficult when you're going through that. But it was a safe space, and I knew it was a safe space. And there were people who commented that I should consider medication. And while I don't feel that in my circumstance I would benefit from medication, I think it was good that they posted that, because maybe someone else needed to say, they needed to see that. They needed to see, oh, it's okay to go on medication, because you know what? It is.
It is.
If that's what you need, if that's what you need, it's available. You should be discussing that with your doctor. It may not be necessary in my situation, but maybe someone else needed to see that comment and to see that stigma is fading, and you need to do what you need to do to take care of yourself and your family.
Right. Yeah, I think that I take Strattera at night and then Adderall in the morning. And growing up, like when we were speaking on the phone, I was explaining to Yafi how a little bit of my background, when I was raised by a woman who, my mother was a victim of child sexual trauma and never got any type of help, never got any type of support. And one of the reasons I feel like I went on and remain on a journey of enlightenment is because I wanted to figure out a way to try to make sure that there's never again somebody like my mother. Like, how do we prevent it all around, where my mother was not able to say, I struggle with parenting because I have all of these triggers. I mean, now as an adult, I think back on arguments that she and I had when I was a teenager or younger than a teenager, where it's for sure was the person that I was dealing with was, I was talking to that hurt little girl, you know what I mean? Not a rational parent, but that hurt little girl who just wanted the pain to go away, but then never did anything. And as my mother grew up, she found solace in support that wasn't really supportive, because these were her siblings who also went through that journey with her of destruction and of horrendous physical, sexual, and psychological abuse. So you really did have, in my mother's situation, unfortunately, the blind teaching the blind how to see, which doesn't really make a very good recipe for being a functional, productive adult. You know, anytime you even put a boundary in front of somebody. I mean, the way that I've watched my mother, and she's, I mean, this is a grown woman, skirt around boundaries, anything she can do to break a boundary, if it's to her best interest, where I've just had to say, you know what? This is what I can offer. This is what I can do. If you're not willing to do the self-work, this is where I draw my line and where my input starts and stops. And I think it's important that these stigmas get eradicated, because I had a therapist when I was 19 years old. I've had 3 therapists in my adult life ask me if my mother carries a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. She probably does. But when I was talking to my therapist when I had just turned 19 about whether or not I should move to New York to convert to Judaism, and, you know, leaving my mom and all of these things and blah, 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 blah. And she just leveled with me and said, listen, listen, your mother is one of those women that you could see on a talk show who know their kid is being sexually abused and allow it to happen. Because if it isn't sexual abuse in the way that my mother was sexually abused, it's dismissed altogether. You know what I mean? She's like, you can't stop any piece of your life, progress or growth, you know, on the husband of this mother of yours. And that was the best advice I ever followed, was getting away and learning that I am a wonderful person. I am a nice person. Gosh, when I don't have a tyrant standing over me, fighting with everything I say and I do, I actually am able to flourish and grow. And it's okay if I'm not a size 2. That's always been 2 things. You're fat. No, 3. You're fat, therefore you're ugly, and you're crazy. Those were my mother's favorite go-to. So I developed anorexia so I wouldn't be fat and ugly. I went on a journey of therapy because, oh my God, I have to go to therapy. I can't not go to therapy. You know what I mean? Like, I can't dare not make decisions for ourselves. And by going to that therapy, and I love therapy. I think therapy, even when things are awesome, all of us should be in therapy. But by going to therapy for as long as I have, I'm still in therapy, I was able to learn that none of that was real and none of that was my problem. And then I feel like when we don't realize, like, even after you realize you're not the problem, sometimes we don't fully get that we deserve more. And I can honestly tell you, my ex-husband, the only thing that makes my mother and my ex-husband different is one was born Jewish and one wasn't. One's a water sign, one's a fire sign. Like, I resorted back in a spouse who carried the same issues that my mother carried, because that old saying, we accept the love we think we deserve. So I didn't hold out and wait for somebody wonderful to come along. I settled for a person who gave me ill treatment that somehow in my psyche felt comfortable at the time at 26 years old, you know, like, oh, okay, this is familiar to me, and got into a vile marriage that was only 14 months, thank God, and every day I'm thankful that the children and I made it out. We made it out alive and healthy and well and okay. But I feel like we have to rip the walls down because we can't just let these people anymore sit with these feelings that build up, build up, build up, and then they lose their mind, like the woman with the 4 kids.
Yeah.
Could
Well,
we
I think you hit the
prevented
nail
it?
on the head when you said you were comfortable. You have a challenging relationship with your mother, but you were comfortable because you were used to those issues. You were
Right.
used to facing those same issues, so you sought that in a spouse because it was comfortable for you. It might be awful and painful, but you're used to it, so it's comfortable. And the same is true with the depression. It can be scary to seek out help. It can be scary to look for help because you're used to feeling depressed. You're used to feeling anxious. You're used to hating your life. And the idea that something could be out there that's better is scary because that's uncharted waters. Even if it's better, like it's scary. You don't know. It's what is that expression? The devil you know is better than the
Mm-hmm.
devil you don't know.
Yep.
So and that's why we perpetuate our own problems because we're just comfortable with our problems.
That's so interesting. Do you feel like medication, whew, I feel like on the topic of medication, you've got like one of two spectrums. You've got people who are pill happy and doctors who think that you know, you don't have to do any self work here. Let's give you a pill. And then you have the people
Yeah.
who are not going to touch medication. What can, and this is, I think, so important, is because no doctor is going to tell you this. I hate to say it, but most MDs, there is an advantage for them to write you a prescription. Is there not? Like they make, I mean, is there a transaction involved on that prescription?
According to laws of ethics, there aren't, but sometimes there are certain ways around things. I think it's just more that a, certain diagnoses and medical handling of certain situations requires a team effort, and sometimes you get egos in the way. You know,
Right.
for example, I'm a dietitian. I have an infographic on nutritional management of postpartum depression, and anyone wants to message me for it, I'm happy to send it. Whoever's going to benefit from it should have it. But at the very top, it says this does not replace your doctor, it does not replace your therapist. It's something that you can do in order to help those other modes of getting help. It's a team effort. And the thing is that when you have someone who's suffering from depression, let's say it's postpartum, it's really common to have hormones fluctuating, especially if you're breastfeeding. You would think that since breastfeeding is natural, everything would even out, but we do see an increased incidence of certain types of depression with breastfeeding and certain issues with breastfeeding. And it's very important that people know that. So that's the number one. So you should be seeing someone who can evaluate your hormones and see what you can possibly do to regulate your hormones. Because putting you on a pharmaceutical depression management drug, while it may be beneficial, it might not be the full answer. It may be the Band-Aid. Okay, so you also have a lot of people right after pregnancy having hypothyroid conditions. And this is also complicated because hypothyroid conditions are overdiagnosed in this country. But your thyroid does expand enormously during pregnancy, and after pregnancy, it needs to contract, and that causes its own disruptions with your mood and with your appetite and with your sleep and with your sex drive. See, we're always getting back to sex on this.
Right.
And then you have increased nutrition needs. Let's say when you're pregnant, you need roughly 300 extra calories per day throughout the pregnancy for adequate fetal growth. That's above your own needs. Okay, so if you're breastfeeding, let's say you're breastfeeding one child, which you and I know is not always the case. You're breastfeeding one child, that's an additional 500 calories per day on top of what you need.
What you need to
If
eat.
you have twins that you are breastfeeding, your needs start to go through the roof. And it's coupled with the fact that you are at a decreased situation to meet your own needs. And that's why I do a lot with new mom nutrition, and I've written stuff on it, and I encourage having snack baskets. You have a diaper station, you should have a snack station too. You need a visual reminder to eat and drink.
And even if it's just an energy bar, even if it's a shake, if it's calories, if it's nutritious, a lot of these shakes, these meal replacement shakes, do have vitamins in them. And it's one thing to say, and that's all you eat, but if that's what you can get to get that additional 300 to 500 calories, instead of one scoop of the powder, maybe do 3, or instead of using milk or juice or water, maybe use a whole fat milk or some milk to give it that additional protein and additional calcium, whatever it is.
And fat, you need fat. Fat is important for mood regulation, and a lot of times we hear fat in the diet makes fat on the body, and it's way more complicated than that. But fat is so important in mood regulation, so it really is important to have those sources of fat in your nutrition intake. But so here you are. Okay, I did a segment on this. Water, if you're dehydrated, it can show up as depression and anxiety. And if you have certain nutritional deficiencies, it can show up as depression and anxiety. So you have increased needs. You have decreased ability to meet your needs. You all of a sudden are thrown into this situation where you're in charge of at least one other person's life while you're trying to take care of yourself, which is super difficult. And here they come along with these medications that may be masking dehydration, maybe masking a nutritional deficiency, maybe masking hypothyroidism. And sometimes all of that stuff is in line, and there's just something else going on that means that medication is beneficial. And that's fine. But what I'm trying to describe here is that this needs to be a team effort. There needs to be a therapist and a dietitian. There needs to be maybe a naturopathic physician who can attack it from that angle. I find that naturopathic physicians are much more proactive with these things as opposed to trying to put Band-Aids on it. So it's just very important to have a team of people, not just one professional who's evaluating you and determining your need for medication or your need for nutrition.
Now, in terms of water intake, because that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that that's true. I mean, I've seen it happen where a glass of water really can smooth someone out. I feel like the days that I don't take a multi and at least one additional vitamin C tablet, or I feel like a multivitamin C and a fish oil should be the law. I think like please God, when we have when Mashiach is revealed and we no longer have a government that may or may not be trying to kill us, we don't really know. I feel like it should be the law, because when I have that 3 combo going on, my everything mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and the water, I'm not saying I don't have problems, but I don't have frequent headaches. I don't have issues with digestion. I don't have body ache or pain and things of that nature. I feel like just those supplements and water really do cancel out a lot. And if someone is prescribed, like someone like me who's a coffee drinker, I love coffee. I love it. I feel like I'm such a 7-Eleven customer. I wish they would give me stock in the company, but in the whole corporation. But if someone isn't drinking water, like what would you say the minimum ounceage a day should be? Like, is the 20-ounce bottle of Poland Spring going to do it? Or should we be talking about liters? The Optivia people tell you that you should be drinking, if you're 200 pounds, 100 ounces of water.
Well.
I mean, listen, you can drink 100 ounces of water. If you have I don't know who has the time for that. Where is the truth in the water, in the watering?
Okay. Let's say you have a 200-pound person living in Arizona and a 200-pound person living in Alaska. And the only reason I'm bringing up the weight is because a lot of times these recommendations are based on weight. I'm a non-diet dietitian. I don't advocate restrictive eating. I don't advocate intentional weight loss. All this stuff leads us to malnutrition and unhealthy relationships with our bodies. So the only reason I'm mentioning weight is just to say they are the same weight.
Okay.
So so based on, you use the O word, Optivia, that's like a knife like that.
I'll have
Anyway.
to send this video to there's a rabbi in our community who is adorable, and his wife has like had it with Optivia. She's done, like, she doesn't want to hear about Optivia. I have to send her this. She'll get a kick out of it. She hates.
Well, I'm very happy to talk to her and have a reasonable conversation about the pros and cons of multi-level marketing nutrition. Anyway, so you have these two different people,
Right.
same weight, one in Arizona, one in Alaska. Do they both need the same amount of water? Okay, water needs come back to a lot of different factors, much like all nutrition needs come to a lot of different factors.
Right.
And weight, by the way, is determined by a lot of different factors.
Right.
But okay, you have genetics, you have weather, how humid is it out? What kind of activity are they doing and how intense and how often are they doing that activity? Are they sitting in an office or working outside? Are they stay-at-home parents or are they working 8 hours or 10 hours? Are they sitting in traffic?
Right.
How humid is it? Did I say that?
Yeah.
Really, it's factors. All of this factors. And so you might hear drink 8 glasses of water per day. And you may hear drink 13 glasses of water if you're breastfeeding. And the truth is that it's good to have guidelines to know kind of what is expected. But the only way to judge your hydration and if your hydration is adequate is by looking at your urine color.
Okay. What
You're
color
looking
should the
for
urine
that.
be?
You are looking for that pale yellow color.
Okay.
If you're taking a multivitamin, it's going to have a B complex in it, which is going to give you that kind of neon thing going on.
Right.
Where
Every
like if
time
you put
I
a
take
black light.
a B complex,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, it's The Simpsons. Like, it's.
Yes. And so that's going to throw it off, but you're still looking for that neon color to be pale.
Okay.
If your urine is dark, if you really have a strong color, then you really need more hydration. And so the question is, does coffee count? Well, people go back and forth with that. The truth is that something that has caffeine, it's a diuretic, which means you're getting rid of water.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, if you are having caffeinated beverages, it's kind of a wash. You know, if you think about what you could use to water a plant, if the plant would live, then that's good hydration. And if the plant would die, then that doesn't really count as much hydration. I have my soda stream. I like bubbles.
Oh yeah.
I don't drink soda just because I don't like the flavors.
I quit.
But I like the bubbles.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, you know, I used to enjoy a soda every so often. I might have one like 3 times a year. So it's just not my thing. Everyone has their thing. My thing is ice cream or cheesecake. You know, I'm not saying I don't drink soda. I'm perfect. I'm saying that's not my thing. I've got other things that I enjoy.
Right. Like Diet Coke doesn't do it for me anymore. Like,
yeah.
I'm glad I was
like
able
your coffee,
to overcome.
That's fine.
Right.
So I have my soda stream. I make bubbly water. I prefer all of my water to have bubbles in it.
Me too.
That's fine. By the way, it does not damage your bone health.
Hydration? Is that real?
It is real hydration. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's water that has CO2 in it. So if you think of it this way, and my mentor, who is also, she's a naturopathic physician, told me this. If you were trapped in a bank vault and you were losing air and you didn't have any air to breathe, but you had a gallon of water, could you use the oxygen that's in that water to breathe? No. We don't work like that. Yeah, if you were a fish, you could take oxygen out of the water because they're built like that.
Right.
We're not. Your body is not going to do anything with the CO2, the bubbles.
Right.
Yeah, there we go, some bubbles. Your body is going to expel that air up or down. It's going to go. It's not going to affect your bones. There's some combination of caffeine and phosphates that actually do affect your bone when you're talking about traditional soda.
Okay.
But when you're just talking about carbonation, it really is not a health risk. You can drink carbonated water as your hydration as long as you're feeling hydrated, and that's fine. You can also have herbal tea. You can have plain water, hot, cold, room temperature. Throw some frozen fruit in there as like instead of ice chunks, like some pineapple, for example. If you don't like the taste of water, change the taste of the water.
That's exactly why I bought a mint plant for my little garden.
Yeah.
To just snip some leaves, rinse it off, throw it in the water, and let it.
Sure.
Just
let it do its thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's good hydration as well.
Really refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Put whole strawberries in. We're getting into summer now. We have fantastic fruit.
Right.
So use it. Put some watermelon in your water. You know, just make it fun so that you're interested in drinking it.
like, do you ever find it interesting that when you go to a psychiatrist, when you talk about depression, anxiety, and all of these things, and that your water intake is relevant, your nutritional intake is relevant? I've never been asked by a psychiatrist, never, not once. And I mean, I usually, let's just put it like this. When I lived in New York, I had an excellent psychiatrist, and the only reason I switched is because I moved out of state. There you have it.
Yeah.
But I can't recall ever being asked by a medical professional, what's your water intake? Are you taking vitamins? What does your diet look like? Never. Why?
Yeah.
What, like,
because they're not trained in it. Everyone's trained to see the world from their own worldview, and you have that in different religions, and you have that in different healthcare professions. You are trained. It's the Talmud says we don't see the world as it is; we see the world as we are.
Right.
And that holds true in the healthcare profession. If you have a medical doctor, they were trained a certain way, and that's how they will approach health issues. As a dietitian, I'm not going to tell you whether you should be on pharmaceuticals or not, because that's not my scope of practice.
Right.
It's not how I was trained, and it's not responsible for me to go into that area. I could say something like, you may benefit from talking to your doctor about that, but I'm not going to attempt to talk about dosage of sertraline, for example. This is not, it's important that we all know what our strengths are and our limits are.
Okay.
I do nutrition, and as a dietitian, I often feel marginalized in healthcare settings because we're not seen as part of the team when we should be. If you're expressing a concern about depression, it would be wonderful if your doctor said, okay, let's talk about this. And I also want to refer you to this dietitian to make sure that all of that is on point, to make sure you get the best care possible. We can all work together.
Because I would imagine if someone is having anxiety, if someone is having anxiety or depression as a result of, what's the word I'm looking for? Let's say dehydration or lack of nutritional function, you go to the doctor, they get prescribed. I feel like the ones that I'm aware of, Zoloft, Lexapro, those pharmaceutical drugs, and you're not correcting the issue from a nutritional or hydration standpoint at all, you will still have those problems now being masked by a medication, or will you still feel okay?
Well, it's going to force you into a different mental state, and that's going to be fine in the moment, and that's going to be very helpful, but it's not going to address the underlying issue, and it's going to mean that you're going to be on that medication long term until the actual underlying issue is addressed, either through therapy or nutrition or a combination thereof.
Okay.
And I mean, I just want to say again that medications are there for a reason, and we are living longer and happier lives because of advances in pharmaceuticals and in medicine in general. So I don't want to be down on that. I'm just saying that it's important to be evaluated from a multi-angle perspective rather than just looking at, I am feeling depressed, I'm going to take a pill. It's more complicated than that, and it needs to be treated as more complicated than that from the healthcare perspective as well.
So basically, it's like if you feel like the situation is serious enough that you should see a psychiatrist, in the same token, meet with a dietitian and make sure that you're up to date on your well visits to discuss all of the nutritional and mental health issues, so that maybe, I don't know what the percentages are, but let's say instead of 5 milligrams of Lexapro, maybe you only need 2. I don't really know how it works out. But
right.
I feel like before you label a neurological chemical imbalance, why don't you make sure that you don't have a bunch of other, like, how do you know you don't have diabetes? Like, hormones, for example. If every time I had PMS, I went on a mood stabilizer, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I only need, I mean, when I have PMS and the hormones are going crazy, I'm going, I'm not fun during PMS. And I feel like also there's real side effects to these drugs. And God forbid, we're not saying avoid them. We're not saying don't trust the doctors, they're evil. We're not saying that at all. we're saying if it's important enough to see the psychiatrist or the dietitian or the doctor, maybe treat them as a team and cover yourself from all bases, because maybe, like myself, maybe you do need that medication, but it's maybe now a question of how much, because you're aware of where your blood levels are at, your sugar levels.
Right.
You know, you're feeding yourself, you're hydrating yourself, you're exercising. Like when I do at least 20 minutes of cardio a day, my whole world is clearer than when I do none.
Yeah. 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 I'm a big advocate of joyful movement. And that's, people think that they need to do something very intense in order to get that benefit. And the truth is that YouTube is a saving grace. It's amazing. You can go on YouTube and look up Zumba or kettlebell exercises. And I mean, with something like that, I would make sure that you have proper form so you don't injure yourself. But
Right.
you can go on YouTube, you can do some Tai Chi or some yoga. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to change your clothes.
Like no
push your furniture a little out of the way.
Like
What's that?
No one ever died of a Pilates or yoga overdose.
Right. So you push your furniture out of the way and spend 5 minutes. And if you like it, do another 5 minutes. But you know, we're told that we shouldn't kind of half-ass things, you know. But the thing is that if you have 5 minutes,
you have
minutes. 5 minutes. And you can do 5 minutes, and that's fine. And if you have half an hour and you enjoyed your 5 minutes, then go for the full half hour. But you have to find something that makes you happy. I've heard so many people are into running, and that's fine if you like running, but if you don't like running, don't run. Find something that makes you happy. Find something you look forward to. I personally like Zumba videos and Fitness Marshall, super fun. The Fitness Marshall videos on YouTube and swinging my kettlebell around. That's my thing. A friend of mine doesn't like dance things. She likes power weightlifting, and that's her thing. You have to find your thing.
I like the gym. I actually go. I go at least 4 days a week, if not all 7. I mean, usually Shabbos, here it gets out at like almost, 9:45. So obviously I'm not going on Saturday, but I try to go at least 4, if not 6 days a week, because that 20 minutes to an hour on the elliptical, I mean, the health benefits, I started to see the weight, like since recovering from being sick, I've put on, I think, way too much weight. And now that I'm starting to see it come off, that's secondary. I feel like at this point, it's for my overall sanity. And I'll go from drinking maybe water or very little water to at least taking in a liter a day, which I've noticed balances out so many things, especially if you're a coffee drinker. You're not only, as you mentioned before, the diuretic, so you're rehydrating what you've been flushing also, what I think is important.
And I think it's great that you mentioned that the weight is secondary, because people don't know that. They focus so much on their weight, and weight is much more often a symptom of something than an actual problem in and of itself. So there are so many reasons to work out. You work out for that endorphin rush because it feels good. You work out for energy and sleep quality and better interpersonal reactions. You work out to get out some aggression. I mean, hit a punching bag. There are so many reasons to work out. We do not have to focus on the scale. You don't have to get on a scale.
I don't even own a scale anymore. I don't even own a scale anymore. It's just for me personally, it does nothing but create like a cycle of like these things that I don't need to fixate on. Like I don't need to focus on the number. And I feel like I should know enough about God and the way the world works at this point. You know what? If someone isn't into me because I'm fat, I can promise you they'll probably not be into me romantically for another reason that, and then this was just the trivial one that got them to say no, because had you gotten in the door, it could have been a disaster. Like,
I love that. I love that.
I mean,
and you know what?
It's
I
hard.
love you, and I think you probably give awesome hugs.
I try.
I mean, your kids probably really enjoy hugging you.
They do.
That's beautiful.
They do. And that was exactly why I thought we need to create a place in the world where we're able to talk about these feelings so that we don't get so trapped in them that we become those mothers who stop hugging their children, or that become physically, emotionally, or spiritually abusive. I feel like there's so many things that we can do just by giving a shit and by doing the self-talk, and in my opinion, holding on to God. These are the ways that God shows us, I feel like, not only who our friends are, but where our help is. By, we're not always going to get, and then God, a bag of money appeared. Like, it doesn't work that way. That's not the way that it works. But
I wish.
Right? But you could be shown opportunities on where to go make money. And I feel like people don't realize that that's when we're praying for something, we're praying for abundance of something, or we're praying to be a better mother, like, which I've done. I mean, I was raised by all but wolves. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we're able to see, even if it's something as small as Confessions of a Mommy, a Facebook group, where our support lies, and that there could be, I need support in this and you need support in that, and that could be the place to go to manifest that support so that we're able to heal ourselves. And I think that it's important that we talk about these things, because a very dear friend of mine this was probably 10 years ago, at least at this point, but her aunt had probably postpartum psychosis, probably, she had a baby. A few weeks later, she and her husband went to a movie. They went to dinner, went to a movie. They get home, and she said, I'm going to take a small walk. Hours go by. Husband goes to bed. Hours go by. She jumped off a bridge.
Wow.
I mean,
yeah.
After date night, it's like, that's not the baby blues. And it makes you wonder, before she did that, what went through her mind? What was she thinking? What was she feeling? And where the sadness was so deep that the only solution was, to end her own life. Like, that's never the solution. And if we can create a safe enough environment where women are allowed to talk about their feelings without the backlash, without the judgment, without the people that have oodles and noodles of money, and a husband and in-laws and a nanny and a cleaning lady, like, those are not likely going to be the people who should be giving us life advice. You know what I mean?
I want to show you something, because I've been accused of being that, like, Pinterest mom. Okay. So here are some pancakes that I made this morning, because and here are my muffins, my green muffins I made this morning. And now I'm going to show you the rest of the reality. Here are the dishes in the sink. Okay. Because that happened.
Right.
And I have piles of laundry. Okay. All my toddler test kitchen stuff that I need to clean and get ready for the next class.
Right.
And a mess that's just a mess. And all of the laundry I need to fold today. Okay. Because I want to show that I've been accused of being that, like, perfect mom. And okay, I made fresh muffins this morning, but I didn't fold the laundry. Okay.
Laundry either. But I did water the plants.
Nobody's perfect. You watered your plants. Good. Nobody's perfect. And what you see on Instagram is what you see on Instagram.
Right.
You can't compare your life to the highlights reel of someone else.
Right. And I think that's important. That's an important topic. Women, we need to get the hell over Instagram. The stuff we see on Instagram is a picture of that moment, and usually far away from reality. Far away from reality. A friend of mine the other day was saying about a girl he and I both know on Instagram, and I was like, okay. I know her in real life 12 years. I see what she posts on Instagram. I also know.
And you know who she really is.
And I also know the other side of the picture. Exactly. I wouldn't.
And it's not that anyone is actively trying to lie.
It doesn't matter who she is, by the way. For the people who are watching, I'll never tell you who she is. I'm just saying that, like, I wouldn't go. I knew the background. I don't know that that woman would have been capable of giving life advice. Even with my own show, I always have a guest on who knows leaps and bounds over what I do on the topic, because it's a learning experience. You're going in, most of the time when I have a guest on, if I know anything at all about what they do, it's marginal. It's, you know what I mean? I'd rather bring the professionals and say, oh, here they are. Let's talk to this person who's not just winning it with likes on Facebook and likes on Instagram, but is actually doing something productive in their actual life, whatever that particular topic may be, to then, bring it to all of us to learn from. So
Yeah.
I'm very selective in whom I will actually learn from, because if I know what you're like outside of Instagram, and I know that you're a mess, emotionally, spiritually, and everything else, I'm not saying, God forbid, everyone has purpose, everybody has value. That's not what we're trailing away from. But I'd rather let someone educate me who's like kicking ass in this particular area. You know what I mean? All over the place, not just on Pinterest. If that makes
Right.
sense.
And the things that I post, like my Instagram feed, you might think that I am, the perfect mom, which I most certainly am not. But it's because I'm showing what I'm doing for my business. I'm
Right.
showing you what I cooked. And maybe I should make a video on how much effort it takes to get one picture of that damn dessert that's going to be the next
right?
recipe for Toddler Test Kitchen, because I wanted a little hand holding it. And so I have to have like, no, just hold it. No, just hold it. Just hold it. So you see one picture.
Right.
One picture that's edited, by the way,
Right.
to clean up the table because all the crumbs that would not leave. And here's me saying, no, just hold it. Can I eat it yet? Can I eat it? No, just hold it. No, you can eat it, but don't, just hold it. Just hold it. Just one more. Okay, just one more. It was a little blurry. One more. Okay, that's real life. But that's not what you see when you look at the final
Right.
product.
You don't get to see the, dear God, please just hold the muffin and you can have it. Just, I need one picture of your hand on that stupid muffin, please. Like,
yeah,
we don't see that part. We just see, we just see the finished picture. Like,
yeah.
I almost didn't do this talk show because I was like, oh my God, I'm so fat. You know what? So is Oprah. Like, who cares? Like,
I don't know. As far as nutrition and body size, I wouldn't use Oprah as a goal.
I know.
The poor woman is probably just food obsessed. I can't.
She is, but
oh, the poor woman.
But I'm saying we can't, like, if Oprah can be an inspiration to hundreds of millions of people, men and women alike, and nobody has ever said, well, we can't listen to Oprah, she's fat. You know what? Like, who cares if Oprah's fat? She seems to be doing, like, it hasn't stopped her. She got there for being smart and for being dedicated. I mean, she has now a line of food out now, right? I think.
I don't know. I stopped following.
Yeah, it's not kosher, so it doesn't apply to me. But like, I think that it's important to be real with how we feel and to find support wherever we can find it. Like, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So it's wrapping up, because we actually went 15 minutes over. How can someone get in touch with you? And we're going to post links to your blog, all your social media. How can someone get in touch with you?
Thanks. Yeah, well, the links that are going to be posted, babybloomnutrition.com. I have a very extensive video library where I do nap time nutrition every Tuesday, and I cover some really fun topics. Today's topic is sex after baby, and I have my own special guest on who's a doctor of physical therapy, so that's going to be awesome.
That's awesome.
But you can go to you can go to naptimenutrition.com to see my video archive, and that redirects to my my Facebook video feed.
Awesome.
And I'm on Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. What time is it right now?
2:46 Eastern Standard Time.
Okay. So you're 3 hours ahead of me. So it's 4:15 your time.
Okay.
1:15 my time. And that's usually live. Today is pre-recorded because I had a special guest who, I needed to accommodate her schedule. So usually it's live. I'm open to any subject suggestions. I do have something like 54 hours of me talking at you, so you could binge watch me should you be so inclined. I've covered a lot of subjects from breastfeeding nutrition to should you be vegan, and now we're going to be talking about your sex life.
I feel like we should do at a different time another topic about sex after children, or like sex in general, or should you be vegan? Because like, listen, I mean, if someone is a vegan, that's just not our business. Like it's yes, I think a dietitian to talk about the health benefits, the risks, for sure there's health benefits, no question. In fact, I read one of those links on Facebook that like opens into an article on their website that's something like 14 days, so 2 weeks on a plant-based diet starts to kill anything in your body that could turn into cancer. Is that true?
I could not say for sure if that's true, but my gut instinct tells me that that's not true because there are different ways to do vegan.
Okay.
And it's not speaking to you or your genetics or exactly how you're eating or your level of activity or your quality of sleep or your exposure to pollution. Or there are a lot of factors that go into whether you're going to have cancer or not. And putting all of that responsibility on what you're putting in your mouth is generally a bad idea. So nutrition does have a link with cancer, but when we start to look at a lot of illnesses common in society and put all of the responsibility on nutrition, it is most often the wrong thing to do.
Okay.
These things are multifactorial.
So I will definitely then reach out next week, and we need to do a topic on sex, which I'm sure can cover an hour in and of itself, and veganism, I'm sure, because I don't want to hear it from my friends who are like, well, you should stop being a religious extremist. And no, I shouldn't. And topic. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. I think, like, I even tell people, like, please, between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, my time, please don't bother me. Like,
I have my phone on Do Not Disturb, so
I need to learn how
to bothering me. I don't know.
I need to learn how to do that. But I think that sex overall is an interesting topic, especially coming from the perspective of Orthodox Jewish women. And like I have friends who are vegan, and I mean, I like veganism. I try to keep to a vegan diet as much as I can. But I'm tired of hearing it if I have a hamburger. I'm tired of being like, like, I can't afford nut milk. It's like $6 a gallon. Like, this is just, I mean, and I don't like it all that much.
You know, I prefer to label my food as opposed to label myself. And I don't mean labeling my food, like that can go really badly. That can lead to moralization of your nutrition, which has all kinds of emotional implications. But I would say, I'm not vegan, but most of my meals are.
Right.
Because that doesn't pin me. We're so obsessed with labels, and labels are for other people. Labels are not for you. You can be 98% vegan and then sometimes have a hamburger. Right. Okay, it's nobody's business to tell you if that's right for you or not. And people do have different biological needs. Anyway, I'm not gonna, it's a whole deep topic.
Yeah, we'll have a topic on it. Yeah, like we'll have an hour at least to like talk about veganism and sex. But one more time, because I like to call sucker punch what you were saying, and I'm so sorry. How do people get in touch with you on the Facebook, Instagram, and you're on Pinterest also?
I'm on Pinterest, pinterest.com/Yaffi, YAFFI, and Facebook, Baby Bloom Nutrition, Instagram, Baby Bloom NUTR. And if you're a Phoenix local, I teach a class called Toddler Test Kitchen, which you can find at toddlertestkitchen.net. And that's a cooking class for kids ages 2 through 6. and we make something fun and nutritious, and we have a great time. And I'm always telling parents it's about the smile, not about the bite, because people are always trying to get their kids to eat stuff, and it's not about getting them to eat. It's about having fun with it, and cooking together is a great way to have fun with your kids. So I facilitate that in my class.
Awesome. All right, guys, when I put all the hashtags, well, I will have links for all of her information. Thank you so much for doing this. It was so nice meeting you and being able to do this. And we will definitely schedule the sex topic and the veganism topic at a later date. I mean, like, if we even can arrange it this week, I say let's get that date booked this week, because this is so important, because I'm sick of hearing about it from people who compare animals, you know, like eating chicken to the Holocaust. I can't. Yeah, God knows I can't. Like, the Colonel Sanders, it might be garbage, but you can't compare eating meat to the Holocaust. Anywho,
Yeah.
thank you guys for watching, and keep following me, Yael Meisels, on Instagram and Facebook. I mean, if you're here, you already know. And thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for being on and for being willing to come back. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me.
My
Bye.
pleasure. Bye.